Okay, it's 3 o'clock. We still have some people joining us, but we'll start with the introductions here and get started. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Apalachicola National Estuarine Research Reserve Sci-Cafe series. This is a monthly series that we usually do in person, but we've gone to virtual this year. This is the 4th one of this season, and we use this series as a way to connect residents and just everybody with the local science that's going on in the Bay, in Apalachicola Bay, and a more informal, casual setting. So we can explore these topics further. Our program today will be about an hour in length, and we'll have plenty of time for questions. As I said, this is informal. If you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand. There's a function on the dashboard where you can raise your hand or type it in the questions. Josh is with us. He'll be monitoring the questions. Josh Eaton is our tech person today, and he works at the reserve with me. Today we'll be talking about Oyster, O.Y.S.T.E.R, offer your shell to enhance restoration. It's an oyster shell recycling program that we've gotten started and wanted to for many years. And the Oyster Corps. Our speakers today are Kim Wren, and she's our assistant manager here at the reserve, and Joe Taylor. He's the executive director of Franklin's Promise and for the Conservation Corps of the Forgotten and Emerald Coast. They'll tell us about this newly formed program that we're very excited about. That's under the Conservation Corps. And without further ado, we'll go to Kim. You want to kick us off, Kim?
Sure, yes, thanks, Anita. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I don't think I might have my video on. There we go. All right, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us today to learn more about the Oyster Corps and the O.Y.S.T.E.R, O-Y-S-T-E-R, offer your shell to enhance restoration projects. So the Oyster Corps pilot project is a collaborative effort combining the knowledge and the resources of the Apalachicola Research Reserve and the Conservation Corps of the Forgotten and Emerald Coast, which also includes partners from the FSU Coastal and Marine Laboratory, the Northwest Water Management District, and the Nature Conservancy's Gulf Corps program. The 2 goals for this pilot project are to create infrastructure. We want to reclaim and treat oyster shell, which is historically discarded in the region's landfills, and provide it for local oyster habitat restoration projects. And then the second goal is to harvest and propagate coastal grasses. Specifically, right now we're working with Spartina alterniflora to be used in strengthening coastal shorelines and protecting oyster habitat. So with that short overview, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Joe Taylor with the Conservation Corps, and he will give us some more information and details on the vision of the project and some of our various partners.
Thank you, Kim. So this is a really exciting week to be kicking off Oyster Corps and the Oyster Initiative to collect shells across eventually Franklin, Gulf, and Bay counties. So I am joined, luckily, by Mr. Ethan Frazier. Ethan is the crew leader for the Oyster Corps project. So I thought it was nice, since he was wrapping up this afternoon, to come and join us. So as Kim said, we are a youth development and engagement program. The Conservation Corps, specifically Oyster Corps, is made up of young people ages 17 to 25, and we operate all the way across from Tallahassee to Pensacola. So the vision is that these young folks will end up doing a series of work, which will include recycling the oysters and using the shell, growing the Spartina, and even some aquaculture education components over the next 1.5 years. And then they'll actually end up with a certification and be ready to go and work in the field. We are an AmeriCorps program, and so that teaches, national service skills for our young folks, and they are fortunate enough to earn education awards through the program, so they can have funds at the end of their experience to go out and take further education, whether it's college or technical training. So Kim blessed us with a review of those folks that were involved and the support coming across all of the partners. So we're super excited about those folks that are supporting the effort and the energy that's going into this. A little bit about the Conservation Corps itself. We're 6 years old. We were funded as a direct response to the BP oil spill. So basically what some visionaries who included the Nature Conservancy, it included folks from the Corps Network out of Washington, D.C., and many of our local state folks knew that there were going to be a lot of restoration work that happened over the next 30 years. And if we did not engage and train our young people who were born and raised right here in our communities, that those jobs would be filled by other folks. And so to date, we've had over 220 folks work with us. They've completed over 1,100 projects, you can see, mostly conservation and construction. And we've also all been trained in disaster response, and we've responded to 7 regional disasters. So I will say that Kim Wren has been with us since the first meeting on the first day talking about Conservation Corps. And so we're excited that Oyster Corps is beginning almost like an academy for young people in the oyster restoration process. So Kim, I'm going to turn it back to you and just let you talk about the importance of the work that we're doing.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joe. I'm very excited to say that the reserves collaborated with the Corps Network since 2016 to help protect vulnerable shorelines, to create essential habitat through the installation of living shorelines. And this valuable partnership accomplished critical conservation projects. At the same time, while providing young adults an opportunity to learn about environmental issues, challenges, and then also the opportunity to work alongside environmental scientists and resource managers to complete natural resource projects. So some of the other resource management projects that the Corps has been instrumental in helping us complete is it's included prescribed fire preparation, invasive species removal, public use enhancements, marine debris removal, and then of course our shoreline restoration, habitat creation, and marsh creation, oyster habitat. So one of the goals of the partnerships for the reserve is to assist the Corps in developing the next generation of environmental stewards by instilling an appreciation for their community and also their local estuarine resources. So the reserve and the Conservation Corps' most recent endeavor that we're talking about today includes partnering to increase the capacity of the Corps to build the Oyster Corps program, which includes initiating the oyster shell recycling program we're discussing, O.Y.S.T.E.R, Offer Your Shell to Enhance Restoration, as well as developing a co-managed native plant nursery where we can grow native plants such as Spartina alterniflora, Spartina patens, and maybe even sea oats at some point. And being able to offer these key resources needed to expand this program. So I forgot to tell you to move ahead with the slides. I apologize. Can we go to the next slide? Completely forgot about my slides. Okay, so these are pictures that shows some of the projects that we've worked on that I talked about. Go to the next slide, Joe. Okay. So we talked about some of the projects. We've recently expanded our native plant nursery to the reserve shop site. And both of these efforts that we're talking about today are going to help us provide necessary resources for local coastal restoration and coastal resilience projects. So why oysters? The Apalachicola River and Bay System are one of the most ecologically diverse and significant areas in the southeastern United States. And our eastern oyster is one of our most valuable coastal resources. Today, oyster populations are at historic lows, whether this is erosion from development, wetland loss, drought, hydrology, overharvesting, disease, excess nutrients, accumulation of things have been devastating to the shellfish. So turning the tide, so to speak, on the decline really requires cooperative efforts from committed partners. And so why are we using oyster shells? Oysters are a keystone species, and what that means is they offer many beneficial ecosystem services to humans and creatures alike. Oysters and their subsequent reef systems play critical roles in our coastal ecosystems by providing habitat for a variety of aquatic species, many of these being commercial and recreationally valuable species. They serve as organic biomass for coastal food webs, stabilize shorelines, reduce coastal erosion and sedimentation, and also improve water quality because they're filter feeders. So one adult oyster can filter more than 50 gallons of water in 24 hours, which is pretty impressive. So basically, we're looking to use oyster shells to create oyster reefs as natural breakwaters to mitigate some of the shoreline loss that we're seeing and facilitate fisheries. Oyster shells have been used in living shoreline projects as a substitute for other maybe not so natural materials, and also in addition to hybrid structures to increase habitat diversity. So talking about a little bit more explanation about living shorelines, when I'm saying that, this is a method used to protect tidal shores from erosion. And unlike traditional techniques, maybe jetties, groins, or bulkheads, living shorelines use natural elements like oyster shells or native marsh grasses to stabilize the shore and provide critical habitat at the same time. So unfortunately, loose oyster shell is not very effective for reducing wave energy. Bag shell is more sustainable, but we don't want to use plastic material in the water, right? So we've got to look at other methods or appropriate vessels that we can, that will hold loose shell so we can possibly see some recruitment. And that is our goal with building these reefs. So through demonstration projects at the reserve, around the state of Florida, around the country, we've been able to study the success of various methods that are used in living shoreline development. And we've also used a couple different methods here at the Reserve's Nature Center to used as a demonstration site to see how these will stand up to waves and storm energy. Next slide, please.
So thanks, Kim. So really, we wanted to talk about how this vision for Oyster Corps and how we learned about oyster and how it evolved. So I really want to give some credit and a nod to the Nature Conservancy. They have been a key just element of our entire development. They were the visionaries who really thought about creating a corps here along the Forgotten Coast. And so they kind of have a regional perspective. They have a way to kind of pull back and see the big picture. And so our director for our Gulf Corps initiative that we participate in, his name is Jeff DeQuattro. And Jeff kind of brought up this idea of Gulf Corps and what it could look like as a training program for young adults. And knowing how important the things that Kim described were for us to work on and to build knowledge across the region. So he first connected us with one of our program partners in Santa Rosa County, Miss Chris Verlinde with the University of Florida and IFAS. And she had a program that she was working with the county, and it's called O.Y.S.T.E.R. And we have brought that experience and brought that system over to begin in Franklin County this week. So Anita, excuse me, had said O.Y.S.T.E.R stands for Offer Your Shell to Enhance Restoration. And we're super excited to do that. And we're grateful for that relationship and that foundation we were able to build in Santa Rosa County. Of course, we could not do any of this work without the relationship with the Apalachicola National Research Reserve, or the Reserve. They really provide best practices, the science, and help us make sure that the work that we do is consistent with basically making sure that we're doing it in the right way and not causing harm, but we're actually doing good. And then, of course, our 6-year group, we really bring then that capacity together. We have young folks, including Ethan, who've now been with us for 3 years. He's grown and completed many of the tasks that Kim described, but now he's going to be able to focus solely on oyster shell recycling and growing Spartina. So that's kind of where we came from. Phase 1 actually began in January of last year with the work in Santa Rosa County. And we worked with the shrimp basket, the cutting board, and Cozy's Place, and we still collect shells from them today, each day. Phase 2 is here in Franklin County. We started this week. And Anita, are you still on the line? Would you like to talk about the awesome restaurants who are supporting our effort?
Sure. Yeah, we shout out to Christopher Lindy. She helped me, kind of gave me a footprint to follow on this. And I approached several local restaurants, Half Shell at Dockside at Scipio Creek. They're going to be collecting shell, and the Station Raw Bar. Both of those are in Apalachicola. And then we have Patty's Raw Bar out on St. George Island, and Lynn's Quality Oysters here in East Point, and then Fathoms over in Carabel. And we're very appreciative to the restaurants for collecting the shell. We know they stay very busy, and I think they all were very excited to hear about this program, and we're happy to have them on board.
Perfect. So actually, Ethan is here with us, and he is the one that is responsible to load the buckets up in the truck, go out and visit the restaurants and replace them. So he started that first delivery on Monday. Do you want to give them a little update on what's happened since Monday?
So we dropped off all of our buckets on Monday, and we just wanted to go check on some of them today. I know pickup day wasn't until Friday, which is tomorrow. But we went by, and actually a couple places almost had all of their buckets full. I collected 9 from Lynn's, 9 from the Station, 4 from Patty's, and a couple from Half Shell. I haven't went over to Fathoms yet. It's a little further drive for us. I was going to wait until Friday to make that one. I had a doctor's appointment, but all good so far and really excited.
Mm-hmm. You want to describe the buckets and how that works with the restaurant?
Okay, so how they do it is when they go to shuck their oysters, they take the top shell that they would normally throw in the garbage and put them in our buckets and just fill them up. We started with 10 buckets at each restaurant, so if they need more or have any, they have my number, and I can always bring them more. But so they just fill them all up, and we pick them up on delivery day. Me and Joe are going to go look at a site to dump them tomorrow, or put them to cure, and yeah, and then we rinse the buckets out and restart all the process all over again. Seems simple, but it's a lot of work.
Thanks, Ethan. So I'll probably call on you again when we talk about Spartina. So,
Hey, Joe, if I could add too, thank you, Ethan. That's great. You were the missing link. All these years, we've been talking about recycling oyster shells, and we could never get there because we never had a dedicated labor force to handle this, and somebody who would head it up. So we appreciate your efforts, Ethan.
Ma'am, thank you.
So our next step of this in September, one of our other wonderful partners is the Northwest Florida Water Management District. And so Daryl Boudreau, with them, was passionate about what we're doing, and he collaborated with Kim and Anita and the greater group, and we applied for a grant. And Kim, you're probably better explaining exactly what that grant was for, but the gist of it is that they're going to fund our pilot project and allow us to go into Gulf and Bay counties coming in September, and that will last a year. You want to tell them about that opportunity, Kim?
Sure. As far as the oyster collection.
Well, the grant itself that we were able to receive because of O.Y.S.T.E.R and the Water Management District. I know there's a particular source that's, I believe, through NOAA.
Yes. So the grant, it was received through our Florida Coastal Management Program, which is part of the Department of Environmental Protection and NOAA. NOAA is the federal side of our management. And yeah, that's going to be a great catalyst to what you're trying to do with both of these programs and providing necessary supplies and just all the things to keep it going, along with the the education component of it as well.
Super. So before we kind of move on to the next steps of this, did anyone have any questions that they want to put in the box or raise their hand? We'll be glad to answer. If not, we've saved about 10 or 15 minutes at the end for everyone. But if it's okay, if y'all will watch that, I'm going to turn this back over to Kim about what we're going to do with the products that we collect.
All right, I'm not getting any questions just yet, but Jeff DeQuatro adds, Ethan also knows how to monitor the performance of oyster reefs. So, talented young man.
Thank you, Jeff. We're excited that you're on the call.
Great work, Ethan. Okay, my screen just blanked out, but I think I'm back. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Okay, so how do we plan on using the shell that we're collecting? We are going to use the shell to enhance eroding shorelines and to create habitat that'll benefit our bay for coastal resilience projects. So most of the shells from oysters consumed at local restaurants end up in the landfill. And through this new program, the Oyster Corps will pick up the shell from the restaurants and recycle it and use it in our restoration projects. So again, a big thank you to the restaurants that have signed up and have helped us get this going and get it off the ground. Another project that is coming up in the future where shells would be used is the Franklin 98 project. And this is a large project involving the Appalachia Regional Planning Council, which is leading the project to enhance habitat along a 12-mile stretch of highway between East Point and Caribou. And the goal of this project is to improve the ecological productivity of the area, to reduce the chronic erosion that's threatening the roadway and other infrastructure. And so we are looking at providing shells for that project as well as native plants. The FSU Coastal and Marine Lab is looking at using shell for potentially seeding spat for recovery project that is part of the Apalachicola Bay System Initiative, or ABSI. And the mission of ABSI is to gain insight into the root causes of the bay's, root causes of decline of the bay's ecosystem and the deterioration of oyster reefs. So ultimately, their goal is to develop a management and restoration plan for oyster reefs and the health of the bay. And then we also have the East Point Navigational Channel dredging project, which is looking into using native Spartina plants to install around the perimeter of a 26-acre spoil site that will be created through the project. And then, of course, any other local living shoreline projects or maintenance of our current projects is how we plan to use the shell. All right, next slide, please. I think it's still me.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, so the oysters are important, but it's a little bit more than just the oysters. You know, what is our goal with this? We're looking at building coastal resilience through living shorelines and restoration. As we've talked about, living shorelines use natural elements, so not only oyster shells, but also native marsh grasses that aid in stabilizing the shore, providing critical habitat at the same time. Living shorelines also increase shoreline stability, reduce erosion, and enhance many valuable ecosystem functions while protecting coastal habitat. So lots of great natural benefits. We developed a native plant nursery to provide resources for coastal restoration and coastal resilience projects. We realized after coordinating with some of our panhandle partners and being involved with a restoration team group that involves many different agencies, universities, nonprofits, and so on and so forth, the Panhandle Estuarine Restoration Team, we noticed that getting the resources for these restoration projects, the plants, the oyster shells could be a little bit of a challenge. So developing this co-managed nursery provides us with material for these local projects that I've mentioned. And it also provides an excellent educational resource for teaching students about these ecological practices. You know, they get to have hands-on habitat restoration experience in the field. And so we look forward to continuing to expand this program with the help of our local students, the Corps members, and helping them become more familiar with the ecosystem that's in their backyard and their community. So our marsh plants are collected from permitted donor sites, and they are grown in the nursery. After they're collected, they're planted, they're grown in the nursery. We wait about 3 months, and then the plants are split into multiple plants that are recycled throughout the nursery and begin the growing process again. So we're essentially doubling the amount of plants we have. And to date, the Conservation Corps has provided over 10,000 plants. We have to be out now, Joe, I'm pretty sure, Spartina plants, and they've been provided for local shoreline restoration projects. So I'm gonna head back to you, Joe. What do you see for our future with these projects?
Well, you know, I want to give a couple heads up too, Kim, is I want to thank Duke Energy Foundation first for their long support of the program, but also the Mariculture Center down in Crystal River. They have provided a lot of donor plants for us, and we've been able to go monthly and harvest. And that's really, really helped boost our capacity because, you know, as there should be, there's some restrictions on how many plants that we can collect from the existing sites because we don't want to impact, I guess, the native species that are out in the field. So it's really been a benefit to work with the Duke Mariculture Center, and there's a big future in that for us as well. There's still a lot of plants for us to go and collect. So in the future, if it's okay with everyone, I would like to give a nod to Mr. Jeff DeQuatro is on the line with us. And Josh, would you be able to allow Jeff to say something? We got great news yesterday, and I'm going to ask Jeff if he can speak to that and let you know about the capacity of our Gulf Corps program, which has really been the overarching support to make these things happen. Jeff, are you there?
There he is.
All right, I see you, Jeff, but you are muted currently.
All right,
There
how
you
about
go.
now?
Perfect.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Thanks, Kim, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, so Gulf Corps, what Joe was mentioning and Kim was mentioning earlier, we've been operating for 4 years with Restore dollars, wrapping up our 4th year now. We just got word, well, yesterday the Restore Council voted for the next round of packages through that bucket 2, and we were funded for an additional 4 years, and so that will make this program a 8-year, $20 million program. which is pretty exciting, and helping to sustain and spur this innovation is exciting, and something I love to do these sorts of things. I think Oyster Corps is a concept that could fit a lot of places in the Gulf, and a lot of places in other places, in other parts of the world, frankly. And so we are looking at this and wanting to support this and be a part of this. I just want to put a little plug real quick for Conservation Corps of the Forgotten and Emerald Coast. I just did our semi-annual report for NOAA, just finished it this morning. And so they worked 111,821 hours. This is through March 30th, okay, this year, over the last 4 years. That's 1,807 total acres of impact, which is about 18% of the overall Gulf Corps work. 353 acres of that was invasives, 75 was wetland enhancement, nearly 1,000 for upland enhancement. And the planting is going to get a lot more, which is what I'm excited about soon, because they've been working on this wonderful nursery operation going on here. So great work, and happy to be working with all of y'all. And thank you, Kim, for all your dedication and help for them and for the program overall. It's an exciting partnership. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Jeff, for joining in and sharing our great news. That just really helps strengthen the work that we're able to do with the reserve, and the impact that we have on young people's lives. And so we're really excited today about all of the potential that's out there. And it's really great to see, young people getting jobs, and to see grasses growing and oysters making spat and growing on reefs. It's good to know that it's working. So we're really grateful for that. So I think, Jeff, you kind of led into some of our future. We really believe, as Jeff said, that not only is this important for our region, for us here at home in Franklin, but even across to Panama City and Pensacola and, all of this part of North Florida. But there's lessons to be learned, for our whole kind of natural resource community. We're excited that we will be having probably a minimum of 3 on a slow day, and potentially up to 5, young people working this hard. They'll work Monday they'll actually work Monday and Thursday harvesting in the west side of our region, and then they'll work Tuesday and Friday harvesting in the east side of our region. And then Wednesday is going to end up devoted to our Spartina nursery and planting operations. Now, those young folks, this crew, is going to be supplemented by our high school program. It's going to be supplemented by our partners in other parts, like the St. Andrew Baywatch Friends in Bay County. And it's going to be supplemented by our other Gulf Corps members, because it may take all we can do to collect the shell, and the other members be active in bagging, loading, transporting, and placing, and doing the actual restoration work. So I did want to give Ethan a chance to comment and just tell y'all a moment of what it's like and what they're out doing right now at the NERS property, where we have our growing operation. Ethan, you want to tell them about the Spartina, basically how we do it?
Sure. So as Joe said, we went down to the Duke Energy plant not here too long ago, probably 2 weeks ago. And we harvested roughly about 2,000 plants and brought back, and we potted all those up with our secret dirt mix. I don't know if it's really a secret, but yeah, I just like to call it that.
We need to acknowledge Zach and Beth Fugate from the DEP nursery over in Pensacola for sharing the process with us.
Yeah. So right now, what our guys are out there doing right now, they're at the nursery splitting some plants we actually got a couple months ago, and they're actually growing really nice. They're some of them had some weeds in them, so they're de-weeding them and splitting them in half. I want to say roughly right now we probably have, what do you think, about 4,000 plants maybe?
Yes.
And we're hoping to have 4 times that at the end of the year. So 20,000, I think, is our goal, just for spread out between all the projects we have. So we do have a long way to go, but it'll be a good time.
That's pretty much how we do it. There is some things we've learned about planting them. And of course, we learned that with the reserves program. Traditionally, we had planted, like one plant every 18 inches to 2 feet. But what did we try recently with Jonathan Brucker?
I think it was just the length of a flathead shovel, like the head of the shovel. So I want to say it was about 8 inches was the.
Well, how many did we plant in a clump?
Oh, it was 25 plants in the clump. So I think it was basically a quadrat. It was like not even a meter quadrat. It was a little small.
Mm-hmm. So, Kim, do you want to kind of speak to the planting process and why we tried a new way of planting in clumps versus the single plants?
Sure, and great work, Ethan, by the way. Great stuff happening. John wanted to try a different method. We had lost plants before, and so he was looking at a way to strengthen numbers, I think is what they were going for by trying these bigger clumps instead of just putting plugs in.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to go back and monitor these with transects and see how the vegetation's doing. But so far, so good. We've also learned through our experience that burying a little bit deeper, right, was helping out some too. And I think it was like a strength thing to just kind of strengthen numbers.
That's
because
right.
It's a pretty, we get quite a bit of wave action on that shoreline. And John had a grant through, oh gosh, now it's skipped, through NERDA. And there was a lot of effort put into the planting out there. And then we had, I think it was Sally come through, and they lost those plants, so.
Yep. So that was super great. And what I enjoyed about working with the reserve is actually our crew members were actually an active part of discussing and deciding, kind of how we're going to test the next method of planting. So it was really a good thing to be involved in. And I think in that space alone, we transferred and planted another 9,000 plants in the last 3 months, right, Kim?
Yes. Yeah, it was over 9,000.
Yeah. And so,
Hey, Jill.
Yes.
Oh, I was just going to say, before we go on to questions, I was going to ask Chris Berlindy to chime in and maybe tell us some of her experiences. I know I spoke with her, gosh, a long time ago I guess it was back in the fall, and they had started their program right as soon as COVID came around, and they still collected a lot of oyster shells. So I didn't know if you wanted to say a few words, Chris.
Hey, Anita. Hey, everybody. Thanks. Yeah, thank you so much. Our program's going good. Yes, we did survive COVID. Mostly our successes are because of, these amazing Corps, Oyster or Conservation Corps members. These people, I don't even supervise them. Everything just happens, and it happens really well. I did go out with them yesterday, and they're on the ball, and they're great at what they do. That has been great. And a few challenges we've had are our restaurants aren't. Sometimes we have one restaurant that sometimes they recycle, sometimes they don't, which is really interesting. But everybody else we have 2 really consistent restaurants that do participate. And again, it's these young people that are making this work that are just absolutely amazing. If you get a chance to, have a conservation crew in your area, I so recommend it. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Chris.
And I remember
We are-
Chris telling me that they went into a shutdown, but when they went into their shutdown, they still collected like, how many tons, Chris? Did you say? I mean, you collected tons of shells. And I was so surprised because it was during the middle of COVID.
Yeah, we shut down from March and then restarted at the end of May last year. And we still last year, I think we collected like 8 tons. We're at 8 or 9 tons right now. We've been doing it for 1 year.
With 3 restaurants. So that's
yeah,
awesome.
I know. It's amazing. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and I will say,
Thank you.
Chris, the young people love working with you. They think the world of you. So we appreciate the investment that you're making.
Thanks, Joe.
And that's kind of one of the next steps, our last conversation with Chris. And, you know, in our broader partnership, folks that are happening is thinking about what the next steps for Oyster Corps are going to be. What types of expectations do we have for them? Anita has been wonderful at connecting us to other resources. Particularly, she helped us write a future grant possibility, which it was such a good idea, we're going to do it whether we get approved or not, right, Anita? With FDACs. And it was really about doing an aquaculture demonstration project. And she lined us up with FSU and the Marine Lab there to do some work with their hatchery. So the young folks who are going to be working throughout the region on Oyster Corps hopefully will have multiple opportunities for a variety of experiences and come away really being fully versed and able to be, you know, great stewards of oysters, both to eat and to protect our environment. So we look forward to that. So thanks, Anita, for setting those things up and for Chris for volunteering to help us get the curriculum together.
Yeah, and hopefully they will get good jobs and help us maintain our environment. I guess we're ready to go to questions?
I think so. We're 3 minutes to where we're supposed to be. So I think we've done pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I have a couple questions in the box currently, and I'll just field them as they come. But guys, feel free to add some more as I'm working through them. So Portia Sapp wants to know, are you considering expanding the program into new areas like Wakulla County?
Oh, goodness. I would say that we're not closed to anything, but my personal preference is that we have a little bit of time to learn the ins and the outs and basically kind of work through the, you know, potential challenges and all before we really think about being broader than we currently are. And Jeff can actually help me speak to this. Conservation crews kind of work in areas where we try not to travel more than an hour or an hour and 15 minutes away from our home base because all of our members are local, they live locally, and it can just make for some really long days if you're traveling, you know, 3 to 4 hours each day on a consistent basis. So our philosophy has been that we try to stay within an hour and a half realm. And so that's why we have crews that are based in Escambia, Santa Rosa County, Bay County, and here in Franklin. Probably one of the areas that we're looking for a crew in the near future is most likely going to be more north of us in the Bristol, Bloodstown, Bristol region. There's so much work to do there with the Water Management District, the National Forest, and our state parks, and of course the Nature Conservancy is located there. So that'll probably be our next landing, but we're not opposed to Wakulla by any means. We just really don't have the capacity there yet to travel that far.
Great, thank you. Okay, I have a couple part question from Meredith. What is the process for recruiting folks to join the Oyster Corps? Are you pursuing opportunities to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Well, absolutely. So actually tomorrow, we're packing up and loading up, and we are doing a job fair in Gulf County with their school system. We also partner with a lot of other, excuse me, guys. Okay. We're partnering with the school systems. We partner with DJJ. Of course, we do a lot of social media, but honestly, the strongest element for recruitment are the members themselves. You know, they pretty much have a story to tell. They talk to their peers, they talk to other folks. And I would say, Ethan, what would you say? At least 60 or 70% of our members come from a referral from either a partner that we know or a current member. So all they have to do is dial our number or reach out to us. It's real simple, and we will set up a time to talk with them and interview them. They do need to be 18 years old, between the ages of 18 and 25, up to 27 if they are veterans. But we do have some programs where we work with local schools for what we call flex crews that begin at 17. So just call us.
Fantastic. Is there any kind of assistance for people in the program to find jobs after the program? Do you connect them with people in industry?
Absolutely. That's part of the capacity that being a member of the Gulf Corps program brings. We have a relationship with, provided through Gulf Corps with the the Corps Network. And they provide the professional development curriculum. And so our members get full training on life skills, leadership skills, professional development, and then they actually are able to do mock interviews, resume development. They get connections and assistance on how to fill out applications and get listed on all the employment sites. So they have a full support of pathways towards a career. And I don't want to say too much, but we have celebrated many recent employments. We've had folks join the St. Joe Buffer Preserve, Florida Fish and Wildlife, Tatesville State Forest, Blackwater River State Forest, and the Longleaf Alliance doing prescribed fire. So we are very proud that our young people get jobs within the industry.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so Katie says, great job, everyone. Exciting to see this program start up. Where is the oyster shell cured in Franklin and Santa Rosa counties? And was it difficult to find a landowner or partner willing to provide space?
I can answer that, but if any of the folks, Anita, you made a lot of those arrangements, if you want to speak to that.
Sure. I talked to, well, you know, oyster shells, we're used to those. We're used to having them around. And we had a big pile of oyster shells at the Scipio Creek commercial boat basin for 100 years or probably. And so we're going to be doing some of the curing there at near the commercial marina. And the shells that are going to go to the FSU Marine Lab for spat, putting a spat on the shell, they're going to cure up at the Marine Lab and spread them out good and bleach them and make sure they don't have any pathogens or anything. And so we'll split it between those two sites. And if we get bigger, we're going to have to start hunting for some other sites. But we're pretty used to storing oyster shells around, so.
And over in Panama City,
finding that
Andrew Baywatch is going to store the shells at their office location, which is near the FSU campus. So they're preparing their site right now as we speak. And then I don't know if Chris still has access, but Christopher Lindy set up the location for us in Escambia County, and essentially she got us access to the county landfill and some property that they had. So we were able to spread the shell there and wash the buckets there. So that's kind of the locations that we have currently.
Great. A follow-up by Beth Wright. What happened to the oyster shell mountain that was at the Scipio Creek boat basin, and was that funding eliminated? Always wondered why it ended.
Anita, you
I can
want to take
answer that. Yeah, that program ended. It was, I think it was, and Portia, feel free to jump in if I'm wrong, but I think it was about $350,000 a year, and it was somewhat funded by the industry and subsidized by the Department of Agriculture. And they collected shells from the dealers after they were processed, and the repository was there at Scipio Creek Commercial Boat Basin. And there was about a 2.5-story mountain of shells there forever. And they eventually planted all the shell, and we don't have any more shell to store there. It's kind of an unusual thing, but oysters in Apalachicola were shocked and shipped out without the shell, because shell is very heavy. And so they were put on trains and airplanes and rode, and they were shipped in pint containers and other types of containers. So in the late 20th century, early 21st century, people wanted to get oysters on the half shell, so they started to be sold in the shell. So we lost all of those oyster shells that we used to pave roads with and alleys and do all sorts of projects with. We had so many oysters, we didn't know what to do with them, oyster shells. But now, since they're shipped out of the county on a regular basis to go to restaurants, we don't have the shells. So it's kind of changed. We do have some shuck shell, but the program that we had through the Department of Agriculture ended a while back. So yeah, it was a great partnership, but things are going to have to be reformed. Lots of different issues to tackle there.
Okay. Chad Hansen wants to know, has there been engagement with landscaping companies that use the shell for landscaping, such as on St. George Island? Seems like oyster restoration would be a better use for that material and possibly a potential supply.
Anita, you want me to?
Sure.
Okay, so a lot of our local oyster houses still produce quite a bit of shell. It may not necessarily be from our locally harvested oysters, but they produce a great amount. They are very kind, and they support us a great deal in providing shell for our program and the work that we've done with O.Y.S.T.E.R. But they also sell it commercially, because essentially, they buy them and they shuck them. So I know at least half of that product, is available for the open market, and it's a way that they recoup some of their transportation cost in bringing oysters to this area. So yep, we would love to see it in the Bay, but there are also many other great uses, for oyster shell in our environment.
Great. And then how will you measure the amount of shell that you collect?
So each day, we calculate how many 5-gallon buckets, and we'll come up with an average weight of those buckets over a period of time, and then we'll actually be able to calculate it based on buckets, if that makes sense. So we keep a daily sheet, a notebook. In fact, one of our staff person, Mary Beth, who does monitoring, is done very great job at creating online methods for the members to track and monitor their work. So we're going to ask her, just like she does for the other crews, to develop an online sheet where they can actually put the information in their phone, and it'll go to a spreadsheet, and it'll keep it updated and total, so we can report back to everybody on how much we collect and what we do with it. or how many plants we grow, how many plants we harvest, where we plant them. All that's tracked in our monitoring system.
Thank you so much. I think that Jeff posted something in the chat, but I don't think it went out to everybody. And this was probably when we were talking to Meredith. It says that Gulf Corps program crews across the Gulf will be recruiting and hiring soon. September 1st is the crew start date for most of the crews. Corpus Christi and Houston, Galveston, Baton Rouge and New Orleans, Louisiana, coastal Mississippi and Alabama, and in Pensacola, Panama City, and Apalachicola. There will be 11 or more crews, each with 8 to 10 young adults operating annually for 4 years. Approximately 400 one-year jobs with professional development and placement services. So I just wanted to make sure everybody attending got that information. And I think that's all the questions or comments that we have currently. If you guys want to just sign off.
I just wanted to say, I didn't know if Joe or Kim had anything else they wanted to add, but thank you very much, and we really appreciate it. And thank you, Ethan, for taking on this task. We're really excited to see where it takes us. I have put in the chat, I hope, a link to our website and Facebook page, and we'll have more Sci-Cafes. We do about once a month, so you can check on our website on the front page. We'll have upcoming programs. So just like to say thank you, Kim, and thank you, Joe, and Ethan, and Josh for helping us with the tech side and the questions. So we really appreciate everybody joining us, and we'll have a recording of this program on our website, or you can email us and we'll send you a link to it. So thank you very much.
Thank you all for the opportunity. If you see us out, stop and say hello.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, tell them where headquarters is. It's right here. I'll tell them. It's right here behind the reserve on Island Drive, where the old Tiffin's Furniture used to be. So right down the street from us.
Yep.
And which is handy.
Yep. Encourage you to stop by and visit, meet some of the young folks. They'll take you on a tour. We can even show you Spartina growing and oyster shells curing.
That's a great work. Thank you, Joe, and to you and your crew.
Thank you. We appreciate the attention put into them. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita.
Thanks so much. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.